All right. Obviously, it's good to get off to a 3-0 start. And, watching the video, there was a lot of positives. I thought our tempo was better. That's something that we've been stressing, and felt like we did a better job there. Really, like we said after the game, liked our balance, close to 300 yards rushing and passing. That was really good. Also, 15 explosive plays was a big positive. I think that was the most we've had since Syracuse 2016. So that was great to see the big plays that are back and really able to spread the ball around. I felt like we did a better job on third down than in our previous two games, and felt like we protected the quarterback in the pocket for the most part. And, biggest negatives were the turnovers. Disappointed in that. Disappointed in a slow start, first three series, and two of those first three series were ended because of turnovers. And something that we preach all the time is if we protect the ball, then we're hard to stop. And so I think that's part of that frustration of getting off to a slow start resulted from two of the turnovers. And then, the other biggest thing we've got to get corrected is just took too many plays to get in down there at the goal line. And there's several things from that and that we can improve on, and even some different things schematically that we can do. But first quarter of our regular season is over, and so really it's all about getting ready for ACC play. This will be a big challenge. I've been around here for a while. I know how difficult it is to go play at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, a place we have not won a lot. And so it'll be a good challenge for our guys. I know they have a new defensive coordinator, Nate Woody, came over from App State. We played him in 2015 here. Very similar scheme schematically to Georgia Southern last week, where their coach, Scott Sloan, came from App State as well. They do return three of their four up front on defensive line. They got some new guys on the back end, but I think they're athletic and they move around really well. And, I know one thing statistically, they held Pitt to right about 335 yards, and Pitt only had 54 plays. And so that's one thing when you play Georgia Tech, you got to make your drives count because you may be limited with what they do on offense. But I know our guys will be excited starting ACC play. Getting ready for that. Our next goal is to win the division, and that starts here Saturday at Georgia Tech.
Jeff, the tight ends got to the game quite well with the 5 catches on Saturday. It seemed that you were attacking the seam a little bit more with your wide receivers. Is there something that you're seeing in Trevor and Kelly's play that's giving you more guys more confidence to attack that part of the field?
It definitely was great to be able to attack the middle of the field. I think last week it had more to do with the scheme that they were playing. Most people that play us have a safety in the middle of the field because they're trying to get extra run fitters around the box. And, they chose to play more of a split safety where they're playing cover 2 to the boundary and cover 4 to the field and leaving some windows and pockets there. So it was good to be able to hit. I think the tight ends catching the ball did a good job, and quarterbacks did a good job finding those guys. And then obviously we hit some receivers over the middle as well. And, just like you want to be balanced in run and pass, when you're throwing the ball, you want to be able to attack all the areas of the field. And really, it's kind of what are they going to give you? And whatever they give you, you need to be able to execute. And that may change game to game. That can change within the game. But that was definitely good to see.
Amari has looked great in the punt return game so far. We know how explosive Kendrick can be. Would you like to work DK into the punt return game at some point, or do you just keep riding Amari?
Yeah, I think DK is kind of where Amari was last year, where Ray was kind of the guy and Amari's kind of in the wings learning and figuring it all out. I think that's, I have no doubt that DK, if he continues to work on it, will be an excellent guy back there in punt return. He just hasn't got it. But, at the same time, you got to remember this is Amari's first year as the starting punt returner. So this early in the year, we're really wanting him to get as many reps, and he's done a good job so far with the opportunities that he's been given. But there's no doubt as the year goes on, we'd love to to get DK some reps back there because he's dynamic with the ball in his hands as well.
You think the first team offensive line got the message?
Yeah, I mean, I think we also got to remember that we rushed for over 300 yards. But, as coaches, you want everything right. We want to be our best. And just like other positions, I had, sometimes it's more glaring when you're down there first and goal at the 2. There's a lot of eyes on those guys. But, yeah, there's no doubt. I think the positive I took away from it was to see the second team offensive line go in there and drive us down the field. That's been a big emphasis, something we've talked really to all of our offensive players is, hey, when we put you in there, if you're not a starter, the standard doesn't change. And I think that was awesome to see those guys go down there. And I know our starters have a lot of pride. They'll come in and see the things that they need to get corrected. And I feel very confident in that group.
How do you kind of decide with the receiver rotation when you want to try to wear guys in and try to get guys early?
Yeah, that's a good question. Very fortunate that we have a lot of guys that can play. Number one, these guys are evaluated in practice, how they practice, how they execute in practice. And we chart everything: catches, drops, loaf, ball in jeopardy. A lot of different things. So that has a lot to do with it. And then also it's just kind of the flow of the game. It was nice last week that we were able to get all those guys in early and get some experience. And I felt like for the most part, we did have 2 drops, one with Trevion and one with DK. But for the most part, those guys were where they were supposed to be and made some plays. But it's an unselfish group. One week it may be T. Higgins with the long play, and then the next week you come back and it's Justin Ross. And I think that just makes us better as an offense when it's not all just about one guy to cover. Now they have multiple guys that they have to kind of look out for. But I've been pleased with how unselfish that group has been and really gone out and hasn't been perfect by any stretch. But I feel like we're making good progress, and I think the explosive plays in the passing game is probably one of the biggest bright spots of the first 3 games.
You mentioned the explosive plays. What do you maybe attribute the early increase so far to those plays?
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes just like last year when we weren't quite hitting them exactly like we wanted to. I said it wasn't all about the quarterback and it wasn't all about maybe that wide out. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces. Protection. I think the offensive line has done a good job, and the running backs. I mean, you look at on Justin Ross's touchdown. Lynn J. Dixon had to go pick up that defensive end coming off the edge and got just enough of him to let Trevor be able to hold on the ball to deliver that throw. So I think it's the protection. They've done a good job with that. And then also quarterbacks delivering the ball. Both Kelly and Trevor have delivered the ball, put it where it needs to be. And then, our guys have worked hard to get open. And then it's one thing to be open, but it's another thing to finish plays downfield when you get those opportunities. So I really give, everybody, all 11 guys, just like in the running game, it's not just the OL and tight end and running backs. You got to have the wideouts blocking on the perimeter, and that's kind of how we've looked at it. But I would say it's been an emphasis for us, spring, fall camp, something that we wanted to get back to. And I felt like so far we've done a good job with that.
Jeff, it's a quarter of the season in. Are you and Tony, when you sit down to make game plans, comfortable, made peace with the idea that, hey, we've got 2 quarterbacks who are going to play, and it may be that way, indefinitely?
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I mean, we're very comfortable with that. I don't feel like, as coaches, you're always critical. Offensively, if you don't score a touchdown every time you get the ball. So I think whenever we go and watch the drives that didn't end with a touchdown or at least a field goal, there's not many of those where we're saying, well, it's the quarterback and we're inconsistent here and, man, we just don't have the chemistry. We haven't felt any of that. And I think, looking at those guys' stats, it's kind of eerie how similar those guys are. I think Trevor's had, and this isn't something that we're over there marking on the sideline, but I think Trevor's had 42 attempts and completed 62% for 424 yards. And I think Kelly has 44 attempts for 68% and 405 yards. So I mean they're off right there by about 19 yards after 3 games. So for us, we look at it as an advantage. But as far as play calling and putting together game plans, even though people may say there's a huge difference, they are similar in what we're asking them to do and going out and executing it. And so right now we're good going with the way that we've been going. If something changes, then we'll adjust to that. But I look at it as a positive. And if just like Kelly went down, it looks like he's going to be fine. But I mean, if it had been something where he was going to be out for a while, at least you're not telling the second quarterback who hasn't taken many reps all year, all right, let's go, the season's yours. You got 2 guys ready. And I think we have that just about at every position offensively. So we like where we are right now with that.
Jeff, you mentioned the running game and the success it's having, and you also mentioned the blocking the wide receivers on the perimeter. What about downfield blocking by wide receivers? It seems like a lot of emphasis has went on there, and it seems like it's starting to pay off with some of those big runs being keyed by those guys downfield.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we talk about a lot as being a complete player, complete wideout, not just when the ball's thrown to you, but what are you doing away from the ball. And really a lot of it has to do with effort, being in position. And that's blocking is about 90% effort and about 10% technique. It's really desire and want to, and it's something that we're coaching all the time. I felt like we did a good job, and we had some key blocks and some long runs, but also there was some opportunities these guys will see this afternoon when they come back to watch the video where we could have done a better job. So that's something that you're always coaching, and it's what I tell them. It's just like, Lin Jay having to step up there and have a big block versus that defensive end on Justin Ross's touchdown. Well, when we hand it off to that back and he's expecting you to block that corner, we need the same type of effort and desperation to get the job done. That's our way to kind of thank them for the dirty work that they have to do for us in the passing game.
Yeah, I was saying last night that part of the more explosive plays, you guys are just better. He feels like better receiver, better tight end. Can you say through 3 games you feel like this receiver group's better than last year?
I think as a coach, you're this early in the year, I would say we are more productive than we've been, and I think a lot of it has to do with the discipline and guys being where they're supposed to be. We've had very few missed assignments, and then also just playing fast, attacking the ball, all the details. I'm pleased with where we are right now, throwing and catching, and I want to see that continue. And obviously the competition is going to get more difficult as we get into ACC play. And I think the overall message, and I think I told you all this in fall camp, is, for the wide receivers, I wanted to really kind of transition from a group of guys with potential to a group of performers. And I feel like they've been performing and making those plays. And it's not just about getting off to a good start. It's really being able to do that at a consistent level all year long in each game. And the mentality that we want, I think each coach probably coaches this way and tells their guys the same thing. But the mentality I want our wideouts to feel and have is that if we make the plays, then we're going to win the game because of the plays that we made. And if we don't make the plays, then we may cost ourselves the game. Like, that's the mentality that I want our guys to have. And I felt like they've had that so far.
Coach, Georgia Tech is such a ball control offense. If they get it going, they can really limit your opportunities on offense. How does that affect your play calling, or does it at all?
Yeah, I think really what it affects is the being sure guys understand that when we get the ball, we have to make your possessions count. I think we usually haven't looked exactly, but somewhere between 3 and 5 less offensive series when you play Georgia Tech and what they do. Now, it's not about going out there and pressing and making a big deal about it on the sidelines. And that's a big deal too, how you coach your guys on the sidelines in between series. If they do have the ball for 7 minutes in the second quarter, you got to keep your guys ready to go, and you don't want to press. But really, it's just about execution. I think that's the biggest probably thing looking at the first 3 games that we're trying to clean up is just being a little more efficient in certain situations, and because you're not going to get a lot of opportunities when you're playing good teams, and you're really not going to get a lot of extra opportunities when you're playing a ball control team like Georgia Tech.
Obviously, heading to Atlanta, Trevor's going to be sort of in his neck of the woods again near home. How do you expect him to maybe manage some of these, I don't know if distractions is the
Yeah.
right word, but just the outside that's going to come with
Yeah,
it?
Trevor's the kind of guy, it just doesn't look like he gets rattled a whole lot. I'm sure he's probably spending a lot of the early week trying to talk to our players and get as many tickets as he can going back home. But, I mean, that's one thing that, we love about Trevor is he doesn't ever seem to get rattled. The moment's not too big for him. I mean, you think about I think at Texas A&M, that was the largest crowd that we'd ever played in front of in the history of Clemson football. And he goes out there and his first pass is a touchdown. I mean, that's just kind of who he is. So I wouldn't expect anything less from him this week playing in Atlanta.
I think Justin had only one play at Texas A&M. Have you seen enough from him to feel like he's ready to go out and Georgia Tech and get more opportunities?
Yeah, that was a big challenge for him getting ready for this past week. I think as the season goes, really learning, and there's no doubt ability-wise what he can do. But before you you don't want to just put him out there in certain situations and say, hey, just for this play, go do this. You really want him to be able to go and execute the entire offense. And so I really felt like he was challenged last week in practice, getting ready, learning the game plan, knowing that it'd be a game where he'd get some opportunity. And then, hey, how you do with that opportunity will dictate how many reps and stuff you get. But there's no doubt. I mean, he's becoming one of our top playmakers on offense. He had no missed assignments in this last game. He ended up grading out as a winner. So that was definitely some positive steps for him. And he's one of those guys in that room that makes us better offensively.
You evaluate the strengths of this Georgia Tech defense in your mind, what would be the most critical factors?
Yeah, I think as far as their strength, just watching the video, it's a new scheme because they got a new D coordinator, but they do play with great effort. That's one thing that you see, and that's one thing that as a coach you always notice. You're always coaching your guys on effort, and you first thing you notice when you watch 10 or 12 plays of a new opponent is their effort, and that's the one thing that stands out. It doesn't matter if it's a backside corner or a backside defensive end. They're running to the ball, playing to the whistle, and you got to stay on your blocks all the way through. And then I think they have probably the most experience coming back up front. Those guys know what they're doing, and they do a good job. And then I think the other thing that stands out, like I said earlier, is just the athleticism on the back end is probably more athletic. Maybe doesn't have the experience they've had in the past, but I think they're more athletic in some spots. And then they're starting Mike linebackers back with some good experience, and I think they got a good scheme. Even though we scored a good amount of points, we didn't have the efficiency and number of yards and all that we'd like to have when we played App State in 2015. So it's a good scheme, and you can tell watching them. Like I said, if you just look at the score or the outcome of the game, you might not see it, but holding Pitt to 335 yards in 54 plays, they did a lot of good things defensively. So it'll be a good challenge for us.
Anything else for Coach Scott?
All right.